Professor Dr. Subramanian, they all work under the leadership of wonderful Sri Ramurthy Garu, the visionary chairman of CMR Group of Institutions, honorable members of the Board of Management, my distinguished colleagues, Professor Sashikala Gurpur, Professor Subbarao, Professor Ashwini Kumar, the fellow scholars and students, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am a bit flattered and overwhelmed by such flattering introduction about me, but also that gave to me the caveat two things. The first one is it reminded me that after all, we may be law academics, but basically speaking, we are lawyers. And these lawyers always have a notorious reputation of giving a long introduction when the case is weak. And maybe the little angel was so sure about me that she gave such a long introduction. And maybe because the case is not very formidable, don't have high expectations. Okay. The second one is, when you are giving such a long introduction that teaches you a fundamental principle of research methodology, your research should be always luminous and more luminous than voluminous. Okay. Now, with this, it's my privilege to respond to Professor Subramanian's cordial invitation of delivering the keynote address to this the national seminar. But when I saw the list of the speakers, Professor Sashikala Gurpur, then Professor Subbarao, Professor Ashwini Kumar, a galaxy of speakers, I thought whether I should rush where angels fear to tread. And I was in a pensive mood and in a Hamletian dilemma as to whether I should say yes to invitation of Professor Subramanian. And then, of course, as usual, my spouse came to my rescue. She said, why are you in such a pensive mood? I said, my good friend, Professor Subramanian, had invited me to deliver a keynote to some national seminar on research methodology. And you have the galaxy of stalwarts like Subbarao, Sashikala, and Ashwini Kumar. Then she said, you're invited to deliver the keynote address. Yes. And you come from a family of music lovers. Yes. We come from a family of music lovers. And may Goddess Saraswati bless that little angel who gave it wonderful invocation this morning. And she said, coming from family of music lovers, you must be knowing the moot point that in a musical instrument, the keynote is the lowest note. And therefore, when you are asked to speak on the lowest note, why do you hesitate? Immediately, she gave me the elixir. She gave me the booster dose. And immediately I said, Professor Subramanian, I'm accepting your invitation to deliver the keynote address. And thank you very much. And I'll be sharing some random thoughts to you about research methodology because the topics that are assigned to Subbarao, Ashwini Kumar, and Shashikala Gurpur, remember, they will take you into the depths of research methodology and research requirements. The first thing when I found that this is a gathering of law teachers, law scholars, and most important, the 21st century hopefuls, law students, or students of law. I thought that the first, I appeal to my teachers, colleagues, and tell them a teacher should be having three important qualities. Number one, he must be a frontline researcher throughout his life. Number two, he must be a lifelong learner. And number three, remember, he must be an eternal problem solver. Because research should be always a part of the solution. Okay. And therefore, a teacher should be a frontline researcher, lifelong learner, and a problem solver. And he must understand the basic distinction that teaching is dissemination of knowledge, whereas research is creation of knowledge. Therefore, without creation, you cannot disseminate. Therefore, all teachers are two in one. The researchers to begin with, and then there are teachers. And the best research laboratory for a teacher is the classroom. Amartya Sen says, even today when I write a manuscript, before I give it for publication to the premier publishing houses, I circulate it among my students and wait for their inputs. And after they give their inputs, I correct the manuscript and then finally get the approval of my students before submitting it. Therefore, the classroom is the best laboratory, he says. And because he says, a teacher's fundamental quality is you should never try to limit the imagination of your student because of your limited imagination. Because the student has unlimited imagination. And you should never try to limit your imagination, which is unlimited because of the limited imagination of others. And that's the reason why Archibald Wheeler, the professor from the Princeton University, who was a Nobel Prize winner in physics, he told the media people when he was asked the question, Professor Wheeler, why do you think that the students exist in the university? You know what Archibald Wheeler said? Students exist in the university to teach professors. Therefore, my first appeal to teachers is be a frontline researcher and a lifelong learner and have a happy dialogue with your students, converting your classroom into a research lab. Then I find that you have research scholars, of course, formally PhD scholars. And when I look at PhD scholars, I am reminded of my experience with Professor V.S. Murthy. In our younger days, Professor Subramania knows, when we initiated our tryst with our destiny in teaching profession, most of us had completed our master's, but we did not complete our doctorate. And during the course of our pursuit of teaching, we also completed our PhD work and we got PhD degrees. So when I got my PhD degree, I went to Professor V.S. Murthy, and as usual, he was working, rummaging through pages of books in his house. I touched his feet and said, "Sir, with your blessings, I got my doctorate." He did not lift his head. He did not even congratulate me. And as a young man, my ego was hurt. My professor has not congratulated me when I got my PhD. But I thought that he had not heard me. Second time I again said, "Sir, beg your pardon. It's my privilege to share the information that I got your PhD with your blessings." Then without lifting his head, he said, "Mr. Venkat Rao, do you know driving?" I was surprised as to what driving has got to do with me getting PhD. I said, "Sir, I know driving because I have always the privilege of dropping you at your residence on my two-wheeler." "Well, that's good. But then you have driving license." I said, "I have driving license because I'm a teacher of law. I should not only preach law, I should practice law. How can I drive without a driving license?" And then he said, "Wonderful. I appreciate your law-abiding sense. But then after acquiring your driving license, have you stopped driving?" "No, sir. I have got my driving license to legitimize my driving and I'm continuing driving." Please remember, your PhD degree is also like that. Never stop your research after your PhD degree. Your PhD degree is like a driving license. It legitimizes it. Therefore, my fellow scholars, please remember, don't be carried away by the degree that you will be getting. That would be only the beginning of a long journey. And with this, I will now take you to the realm of Alvin Toffler, who wrote a wonderful book called Power Shift. And in that book, Power Shift, Alvin Toffler says, in 21st century, which is going to be century of Asia, power will shift to Asia. Remember, in 19th century, United Kingdom dominated the world. The sun did not set in the British Empire. In 20th century, after the Pearl Harbor attack, when the United States entered the Second World War accidentally, United States dominated the affairs of the world. He puts a question: to whom will power shift in 21st century? He says power will definitely shift from United States. And then he says, will the power shift to Europe? Remember, this was a book that was written in the first decade of the 21st century. And in that, Alvin Toffler at that time had the wisdom That is what you mean by research and social sciences. To say that power will never shift to Europe because Britain will not allow Europe to become strong, because Britain is always suspicious of the motives of Germany. You have seen Brexit in 2019, 2020, 2021. Therefore, power will not shift to Europe. And power will not shift to Middle East because petrodollars will become a thing of the past. But then power will shift to Asia because Asia will be the emerging hub of knowledge societies. And in Asia, the two major powers, China and India, China is a geriatric society. That means for every young person in China, you have more than 6 elderly persons because of the skewed population policy that was observed in 1960s during the height of the Cultural Revolution, when the couples opted for either no child or for one child. And therefore, Barack Obama says China is an aging society. And you need to have more geriatric departments than pediatric departments in China. Therefore, India has the demographic dividend. And therefore, power will shift to India because of emergence of knowledge societies. And Toppler says, in the evolution of mankind, 3 M's have determined the growth. In the first part, it was the muscle power that dominated. Might was right. Today we teach in the classroom, it is right, that's right. Okay, might was right. And law of the jungle was in operation. But in course of time, muscle power gave to money power. And to such an extent that people used to say, the golden rule of law is that whoever has gold would make law. Okay? That was to a great extent correct, almost up to 20th century. But Toffler says in 21st century, from money power, you will move to mind power. So the evolution has been from muscle power to money power to mind power, called emergence of knowledge societies. And he says, in future, you will have only distinction between 2 types of human beings, apart from the biologically ordained male and female. And that distinction will be knowledge haves and knowledge have-nots. And that knowledge hub you will have in India. And therefore, power is likely to shift to India. But please remember, because Alvin Toffler said power will shift to India, power will not come down like manna from heaven. You must deserve it before you desire it. Only secret to you emerging as powerful in 21st century would be to strengthen and bolster your research activities. The last week, the publication by a very important agency very happily said, today India occupies the 3rd position in publications in scientific research. The first position is that of the United States, the second is that of China, the third is that of India. Along with the quantity, focusing and quality, we must do research. And in that context, to organize the one-day national seminar on research methodology is apposite the part of CMR group of institutions, and I congratulate them. But then, remember, in research methodology, today I will share some thoughts to you about ethical content. Because however competent you are, however brilliant you are, remember, unless you have the basic honesty and fundamental ethics, remember, you will not be considered. Subhata Bakshi, in his book, The Professional, says, a professional is one who adds integrity to whatever he does and who leaves footprints in the sands of time. And for research scholars, I always say, remember, even the anti-plagiarism device that you have in most of the universities we have now, isn't it? What is it called? It is called turn it in, isn't it? Look at the meaning of it again. You split the word, turn it in. That means you turn it inside. Remember, it is not for us to check whether there is plagiarism or not. We will say it is 10%, 20%, 30%. But ultimate thing is you are answerable to yourself. That means you must maintain the highest levels of integrity in research. Because after all, research is a pursuit of truth. And truth is an uncompromising value. And in pursuit of truth, how can you compromise? And your attitude in pursuit of truth should be always absolute and not relativist. When I say it should be absolute and not relativist, what I mean is, my young student friends, it is not a game of democracy where if majority of people do it, you favor them. No. Remember, even if 99% of the people don't support, a truth is truth. A lie does not become a truth because it is supported by 99. The lone Casabianca standing on the burning deck is enough. That means an unfair practice does not become fair practice because the majority of people adopt it. Therefore, you should never take umbrage. So many people are doing it, why not I? No. Remember, you must maintain the highest levels of integrity. After all, please remember, that kite flies high, which flies the highest, which flies against the wind. A kite which flies along with the wind will never fly high. Therefore, the first fundamental principle you must understand, even when you write a project in your LLB, even you write an assignment in LLB, write something original. Okay. Write in 100, 250 words, that is enough. Okay. And therefore, highest levels of integrity. And what do you mean by integrity? Somebody said integrity is doing the right thing when nobody is watching. Your research guide will not watch. Your parents will not be watching. But you should not resist temptation by yielding to it, as Oscar Wilde said. You must never fall for that bait. Remember, Mahatma Gandhi long ago said, integrity is maintaining the coherence among or between three things. Between what you think, what you say, and what you do. What you think, what you say, and what you do, there must be perfect coherence. Therefore, research and ethics must always, remember, shake hands. Gandhi said all research is useless if it is not allied to internal research. And our wonderful former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, in one of his Hindi poems, says beautifully, commenting on the technological advancements, well, internet may be important, but internet is more important than internet. Therefore, in pursuit of truth, focus on your internet. Because as I've been judged, remember, by Marcel Proust, the French novelist, the real voyage of discovery in research consists not in seeking new landscapes, not in seeking new lands, but in seeing them with the new eyes. That means the landscape is old, but you have that inner vision. Now look at what Lord Krishna told Dhritarashtra in Mahabharata. When Krishna married Vishwarupa in the court, when he comes as an emissary on behalf of Pandavas, when Dhritarashtra says, please give me temporary vision so that I can do. Krishna says, oh my Bhakta, I was always standing next to you. Only thing is, you did not have the vision to see me. And people who have the vision would always see me. But anyway, because you have requested, I will grant you that. And Dhritarashtra had the bliss for a couple of minutes. Research scholars should never be like Dhritarashtra. Research scholars should like to focus on inner vision, that inner eye. Because Professor Subala will tell you, research is what everyone has seen, but nobody has looked. Remember, you'll be looking at it, you'll be looking at it, you'll be looking at it, but you have not seen with your inner eye. Therefore, go into the depths, remember, and look at it. Rabindranath Tagore, in one wonderful poem, says, remember, there is a lot of difference between research, knowledge rather, acquisition, and knowledge assimilation. And research is not knowledge acquisition. Please remember that. It is a knowledge assimilation. And Rabindranath Tagore wonderfully says, I quote, the world is full of sound scholars, but it is rare to find sound and wise persons, because a sound and a wise person knows the distinction between knowledge acquisition and knowledge assimilation. And then he says, you may become an expert to discuss and debate on the subject with great felicity, okay, with clarity. But Tagore asks, have you realized the truth? The question to be asking, have you realized the truth? And research is pursuit of truth, please remember. And realizing the truth is an inner experience, which you alone can answer. I repeat, realizing the truth is an inner experience, which you alone can answer. It is gauged by each one's honest self-testimony. It's gauged by your honest self-testimony. And therefore, your inner experience and your honest self-testimony are absolutely essential in internet. And therefore, you should be focused always. Remember, because when you are writing a sentence, that sentence is going to influence million people. Remember what poet Lord Byron had said in one context. A drop of ink may make a million think. A drop of ink may make a million think. Therefore, when you're writing a sentence, okay, you're not writing a sentence, remember, to satisfy Professor Subramania, to satisfy your management, to make people think. And here, youngsters, please remember one fundamental principle. Stephen Hawking said in one context is the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. People think that ignorance is the greatest enemy of knowledge. No. Stephen Hawking says the greatest enemy of knowledge is illusion of knowledge and not ignorance of knowledge. And most of us suffer from what is called illusion of knowledge. Therefore, don't become a self-deluded victim of your own illusory practices of thinking that you are knowledgeable. Remember, research is a journey, is a race. And race for what? It's a race for excellence. And in a race for excellence, there is only the commencing point or beginning line. There is no end line. Therefore, it is in pursuit of perfection. It is in pursuit of truth. It is in pursuit of character building. It is not in pursuit of acquisition of PhD. It is not in pursuit of acquisition of LLD or whatever degrees. Because these honorary suffixes or superlatives, as it is called, remember, they are useless. And therefore, research mind should be not only a mind of integrity, should be composed, should be tranquil. And the next point I will tell you, last point in fact, is because I am conscious of the caveat that Professor Subramania gave to me, 10:15, okay. And that point is ethics and research, when they join hands, they must show reverence for life. This is very important. Reverence for life. And here, please understand, Justice Sikri, former judge of Supreme Court, in one context, while addressing research scholars pursuing research in emerging areas of law, had wonderfully said, you must understand one important thing. In law, human is very important. While the human element in law is important, the humane in law is indispensable. Human is only important, but the humane is indispensable. In research also, the humane element is indispensable. That means when you are focusing on research, which will be showing the reverence for life, when Justice Sikri says there is a choice between the collective and individual, you must opt for the collective. When there is a choice between harmonization and divisive tactics, you must focus on harmonization. When there is a choice between long-term and short-term, you must prefer long-term goals. This is very, very important. A researcher should understand that permanent values are more important than temporary valuations. That means it is the distant that is important and not the immediate. That's the reason why a researcher should never opt for the convenient thing, but should always opt for the right thing. Remember, opting for the convenient thing is very easy. And opting for right thing is not that easy. But opting for right thing distinguishes a man who is extraordinary from an ordinary man. And therefore, when there is a choice between holistic and partial, focus on holistic. I repeat all those points once again. That means research should be humane, more humane than human. It must focus on collective, it must focus on harmonization, it must focus on long-term interests, it must focus on holistic approach. And remember what even Satya Nadella, who is the heartthrob of youngsters, because he's the CEO, remember, an Indian, keeping aloft the flag of India in the United States. Remember, he says, research must show reverence for life, and by that I mean, I quote Satya Nadella, who said, innovation is empathy turned into action. Innovation is empathy turned into action. Therefore, the first quality that a researcher should have is, remember, that empathy. And finally, I would say, a researcher, remember, should always, in the Churchillian term, find opportunities in calamities and never complain that, remember, the experience of calamities. Because Churchill said, a successful person can be distinguished from an unsuccessful person in one way. A successful person always finds an opportunity in a calamity. And an unsuccessful person finds a calamity in an opportunity. Remember, a number of opportunities will be there for research scholars, provided you have that extra eye. You must convert that. That means you are the reflection of the opportunities you sense and you chance upon. And for that, I wind it up with a small story which has happened in real life. Most of you must have understood that Neil Armstrong was the first one to have set his foot. And he said, a small step for me, but a giant leap for mankind. But you know, Neil Armstrong was not supposed to have done that. Because in that spaceship, Neil Armstrong was only a co-pilot. And Mr. Aldrin was the pilot. Therefore, when NASA was controlling from remote, everything is time-framed. And NASA was giving a command that in 20 seconds, he must come out of the spacecraft and he must step onto the moon. Aldrin hesitated. And Neil Armstrong immediately thought that if we hesitate, the whole mission will be a collapse. Therefore, he jumped out of the spacecraft and he put his foot in the foot. That means what Aldrin missed in his lifetime by hesitating, by being unable to convert the chance and opportunities, Neil Armstrong became a legend. And a researcher should have them, will be having a number of opportunities. You convert them, convert your chances into opportunities, and maintain the highest ethical standards. And these were some of the points which I wanted to share with you in your voyage of discovery. And one final sentence, my appeal to teachers is, remember, when I said the classroom is the best laboratory for a researcher, please remember, all teachers must follow one dictum in their lives in honest pursuit of research. For a great teacher, text is only a pretext. And you must go beyond the text. You must go to the context. That's the reason why I always say the job of a teacher is not to cover the syllabus, but to uncover the syllabus. And never complain that you have so much of teaching load that you do not have enough time for research. Every minute of teaching is a minute of research, remember, and maintain the highest ethical standards, because if angels fall, it makes news. If ordinary human beings fall, it doesn't make news. And if teachers and research scholars fall, it makes news. And I'm sure this national seminar will be the first step in the right direction of the momentous journey that is ahead of you. God bless you all. Thank you, Professor Subramanya. Thank you, Ramurthy-ji. Thank you, Bhaskar-ji, for having given me this opportunity to make this morning a morning with a difference for me. God bless you all. Thank you very much.